Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is my new setup. If you didn't watch my cleaning video part 2, then you have no idea what I'm talking about being my new setup, but we did my bookshelves, but I'll link that video down below. Thanks for coming back and hanging out. Today I am going to be showing you the books that I read in the month of April. I read a total of 10 books and I'm in the middle of my 11th book at the moment. Today is the 28th, I believe. So I should be done with that, the last book, today or tomorrow. But I wanted to go ahead and get this out because I have already filmed my May TBR and I'm super excited about that. So make sure you're looking out for that video as well. But again, today is about the, I almost said March, about the April books that I read. Some of the books I'm going to have to put right here because I did pick up my Kindle again. I forgot that I had this little puppy, but since we're in the middle of where we can't leave our house, I remembered that I had this, so I picked it back up and I bought a new version of it. And I've been really enjoying it. I've been reading a lot of Kindle Unlimited books, and if you haven't figured out what Kindle Unlimited is, then yeah, it's worth it. It's very much worth it. So yeah, anyways, let's get it. The first book I read is An Abundance of Katherines by John Green. I picked this up because I did enjoy his Looking for Alaska. And then, I mean, it's John Green, so yeah. Anyways, I picked this up and I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads because this book was boring until the last 30 pages. I really wish that the book started on the last 30 pages and just went on from there, because I feel like the first part of the book was just kind of unnecessary. Honestly, really did. This is a book about a guy named Colin, and he obviously dates a lot of Katherines. His first girlfriend made him want to date a lot of Katherines, and throughout the novel he is trying to come up with this algorithm. I should have mentioned he's a child prodigy, so he's super smart. But anyways, he tries to make this entire algorithm about the probability of Katherines, or the probability of girls breaking up with him due to their age and their name, basically, if they're going to break up with him. I don't know. I was so confused about all that, and it was just kind of like, what's the point? But anyways, him and his, Colin and his best friend Hassan go on a road trip after they graduate from high school because they have no idea what they want to do with life. Hassan really doesn't have to work because his parents make enough money, but Colin, he wants to figure out what he wants to do in his life. So they go on this road trip and they meet this girl named Lily, and they start working for her mom, and then the novel just kind of goes from there. But that's all I gotta say. The next book I read is Sea Witch by Sarah Henning, and this book is a retelling of Ursula, so it is showing us how Ursula evolved into the sea witch that she is today. It is written in historical times, and so they don't have a lot of the modern necessities that we have now, if that makes sense. Anyways, we meet her best friend Nick, and we also hear about her friend named Anna, who is the one that drowned years prior to this. Evie and Nick do have a hard time with their friend's death. Evie has to keep the secret that she is a witch because in their town, you don't know what the Salem witch trials is. It's kind of like that. They look down on people that are witches, and they don't want them around them. So she has to keep that a secret, and Nick doesn't even know that she is a witch. But this girl named Eminette just shows up, and she resembles Anna a lot. So all of these past recollections of Evie and her friend Anna surface, and Evie is kind of having a hard time, and so is Nick. And we do find out that Eminette does have some magic about her as well, which intrigues Evie, and the story goes on from there. This does deal with a lot of heavy topics. The first scene in the novel is just a scene about Evie's mom dying. And it's very, very gruesome, and it's very dark, and I was just like, yeah. So, if you like that kind of thing, pick this up. I did give this 3 stars only because it's not my favorite. Fantasy's not my favorite to read, but I did want to give it a try. And in some of the chapters that you're not reading from Evie's perspective, it is from a different character's perspective, but you don't know which character you're reading from. So it was kind of confusing, and I had to go back and reread some things because, like I said, you don't really know whose perspective you're reading it from until like the middle of that chapter, and I didn't like that part. I like to know who I'm reading from. So the next book I picked out, and I think this is probably my favorite book from the month of April because it's just freaking hilarious. It's called The Girl Who Could Move with Her Mind by Jackson Ford, and this is following a girl named Tegan, and she is part of this group that is a secret government group who takes down criminals, and she is a asset to the team because she does have psychokinesis, which means she can do stuff with her mind. So it does have a little science fiction aspect to it. But Tegan's just freaking funny. She's hilarious. And that's why I love this novel so much, because she makes the novel. And I'm glad that she's the main character. But the heist that they're going on, after they complete it, the next day, the main guy that they're doing the heist about, like, they're trying to make him not be able to do they're trying to make him not be able to complete the illegal things that he was trying to do, if you catch my drift. And he ends up dead, and the way that he dies is suspicious because he's the only person that can really, kill somebody in the way that he was killed in. Because the way that he was killed in was regular people can't do. So this kind of has like a superhero aspect to it. Plus, she's just funny. She's just funny, and I did give this 5 stars because it was a great ride. I saw this book in Barnes & Noble, and I kept going back to it, and I'm so glad that I picked this up because this is absolutely one of my favorites. And the next book is coming out in July, so I'm super excited about that too. If you haven't read this, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it, pick it up. The 4th book I read, in the last physical book that I read, is The Shining Girls by Lauren Bukes. That's how you pronounce her last name. But this is about a serial killer named Harper Curtis, and you read from his perspective, but it is written in 3rd person, so it's the narrator reading out. If you don't know what 3rd person is, hopefully you do. If you didn't, there you go. There's a little educational to you. But it is written in 3rd person. You do get to read from his perspective, so you know exactly why he is committing the murders, and you do get to read from the perspective of his victims as well. The only thing that I did not like about this novel was the time jumps, because it is over 60 years, so it's just it's hard to keep up with. Because some of the chapters are written from 1993, some are written from 1952, some of them are written from 1927, so it is kind of hard to keep up with. But it does have a fantastical feature to it as well, because Harper Curtis figures out that learns that he can time travel through a specific house. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm not a really big fantasy reader, so it was a little step into the fantastical world, and I enjoyed it. But the main part why I enjoyed it is because I love reading about serial killers and why they do things. It intrigues me, and this gave me that. I had tried to read this book in the past when I was a freshman in college, which was a long time ago, and I wasn't really into adult novels at that time. I was only reading YA, so I didn't appreciate this novel as much as I have now, if you get my drift. But this is a very gruesome book, has a lot of gory scenes to it, and the author doesn't do away with, oh, he killed her. No, she explains how and why, and how long it took. But I did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars because of the aspect that you do jump back and forth in time, and that was just kind of confusing to keep up with. But if you are into reading about serial killers and why they do what they do, pick it up. It's good. The last part of this is I read it off my Kindle. I will put the little book things right here, little pictures right there for you. But the first book that I read is What Belongs to You by Garth Greenwald. This was a book that I've had on my Audible, which I did listen to it on Audible, but I also read it on my Kindle as well. This is the book that I've had on my Audible for years. And the first time that I read it, I tried to read the actual physical copy of the book, but I immediately put it down because it was just like, it wasn't my thing. Then this thing happened. We can't leave our house. So I decided to try it again on Audible. I did enjoy it a lot the second time around, but it still wasn't my jam. It is about these 2 guys. The narrator, we never find out his name, and also Miko. And they meet in a public bathroom. Miko is a prostitute. What do you call them? Male hookers? We're just going to say prostitute because it sounds a little bit more fancy. But they do end up meeting and they do end up forming a relationship. Our narrator does really care for Miko, but in my opinion, Miko does not care for our narrator at all. All he wants is his money. All he wants is to take from him. All he wants is a place to sleep. So we are over 2 years of their relationship, and finally, at the very end, before something tragic happens to Miko, he finally tells Miko, no, I'm done. And at that point in the novel, I was like, yay, yay, because I don't like it when characters just let people run all over them constantly. It's just, it just makes me irritated. But I did end up giving this book 2 stars because it was a little slow. I didn't like the whole relationship between the 2 people, and it just wasn't my jam. So it was written beautifully, I can say that, but it just kind of fell through for me. The next book I read is I'm Watching You, and this is by Teresa Driscoll. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It is based on a missing person, and you do get to read from 4 different perspectives. You get to read it from the witness who actually saw the girl before she went missing on a train. You read from the missing girl's best friend's perspective, Sarah. You read from the missing girl's dad, Henry. And you also read from a private investigator, and his name is Matthew. But I liked this book just because you do get to read from different people's perspectives throughout. I love this type of books. I know that some people don't find them entertaining, but I do, because I like to know all the little details like that, especially if you're reading a thriller, because this is a thriller type, mystery type novel. But the premise of it is that a girl named Anna goes missing after she is seen on a train and after she goes out with her best friend in a club. And it is a span over a year. We finally, of course, you figure out what happens. But Emma's, the witness, main thing is that she was the last person to see the girls alive on the train. And on the train, her and her best friend Sarah end up meeting 2 ex-cons who just got out of prison. So 2 felons that just got out of prison, and she hears their conversation about how the boys basically just want one thing and one thing only. The reason why she didn't say anything is because of something that Sarah does. Sarah is Anna's best friend. And I wasn't feeling this book up until about the 46%, because it was, if you know anything about thrillers or anything about mysteries, they are very slow paced, and this one didn't have a lot of plot twists until about the middle of the book, and that's when I started really paying attention, because it was fast paced. About the middle of the book, that's when it starts getting really fast paced. But if you really like a story that has a lot of twists and turns and that constantly keeps you on the edge of your seat and constantly keeps you thinking, it's a book for you. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read is The Pale-Faced Liar, and this is by David Crow. This is a nonfiction text. It's a memoir. about a guy named David Crow who grows up with an ex-con as a father, and his dad is considered a genius, but he is a terrible human being. It starts out at the very beginning of the novel. At age 3, David Crow's father tells him, "We have to get rid of your mother." That's the first line of the book, and that when I read that, I was like, "Oh yes, let's just read." But David Crow is constantly, and his siblings and his mom and his dad constantly move around because of his dad's job, which I don't know if I all the way believe that because of just how many crimes his dad did commit, and maybe it was his job, but I found that kind of suspicious when I was reading it. But anyways, it just takes you through David Crow's life and how messed up his family is, but in the end it does have a beautiful message because David Crow did end up doing good things, and he used negativity in his life to do something positive and to teach people just because you had a bad upbringing does not mean that you have to be a bad person in life. And I love that aspect because over the years I have seen manipulation and how manipulation can turn somebody that was a good person into a bad person and vice versa. So I really enjoyed this novel. It does have a lot of triggers in it. Child abuse is the main one. That was a really hard thing to read in this book, but it does show us why David Crow is the way that he is today. It also has alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and deals with mental issues as well. So those are all triggers. I did give this book a 5 stars just because it was very fast paced, and like I said, the growing up, even though you're in a bad situation, doesn't mean that you have to be that person too. I love that aspect, and I love how it helps people evolve into who they are as a person. Alright, the next 3 books are from the Hunted series by Ivy Smock, or Smoke. I'm going to say Smoke. It's S-M-O-A-K, so Smoke. Smock. Anyways, I have a confession to make. These types of books are my guilty pleasures. I love reading them, and after reading 4 heavy novels about a serial killer and then about child abuse and then all that kind of stuff, I had to go back to my roots. And I'm a sucker for the forbidden romance. If you didn't know. Yeah. That's my guilty pleasure right there. But that's just what it is. The first book in the series is called Temptation. I'll put it right here. And we meet Penny, and we also meet Professor Hunter, who is also James Hunter. I'm going to call him James because the Professor Hunter part that constantly comes up in the novel freaked me out. Penny is a 19-year-old student at a college in Delaware. It's called the University of Newcastle. I think that's in Delaware. And she is a marketing major. Before her classes, she bumps into this guy, and he's just, he's a hottie, and he's just, and ends up spilling his coffee all over her. And so he gives her her sweater, or he gives her his sweater because she spilled coffee all over herself, or he spilled coffee all over her. Anyways, that's how their relationship starts. But then she figures out that he is her professor, so that brings in a lot of different things, and that's where the forbidden romance comes in. But the only thing that irritates me is because Penny is naive. That's number 1. She is not going to say stupid. Naive's a good one. She is hypocritical, and she's just... I gave the first book 3 stars only because the steamy parts of the book was what kept me entertained. But it was so intriguing that I read number 2. The second book is called Eruption. Temptation, obviously, gives you a hint to how the first book goes because it's temptation, because they're not supposed to be together. Eruption, obviously, stuff erupts. Yeah, stuff erupts, and you do see a little bit of character growth with Penny, but then you find out some stuff about James. And it was just, again, it was just irritating. But I did give this book a 3.5 stars because you do see character development and you do see their relationship start to form. It's not just about that, their relationship actually does form. And then the third book is called Addiction, and I gave this a solid 4 stars because I started to feel for Penny. Even though she is a 20 dumb year old, I started to feel for her because I thought back to when I was 20 years old and about how I felt when I was in a specific relationship, and I was just like, oh yeah, he's my everything. But then I look back and I'm like, okay, so I do remember all of these 20-year-old feelings that I had about an older guy. And I do realize now that it was just dumb. So I start to feel for Penny and James. He just keeps having these, he's so secretive, and I'm just like, dude, just tell her. And then Penny does something stupid, and I'm like, dude, why did you do that? It's just a big old mess, but it's so messy that it keeps me intrigued, and I ended up starting to read the 4th book. And the 4th book is called Devotion, and I'm in the middle of reading that, so I'm not going to put that in here. But, hey guys, I'm here from the future. I wanted to give you an update on the last book. I need to close my door because the hallway freaks me out when I see it and it's all dark and stuff. But anyways, I wanted to update you on the last book from the Hunted series by Ivy Smock, or Smoke, however you say it. It is called Devotion. And I know that in my the previous clips I said that I was in the middle of reading it, but I finished reading it last night. So I wanted to give you an update on that. And I know that I gave Anna and James, not Anna, what is her name? Penny. Her name's not Anna, her name is Penny. But I know that I gave Penny and James a lot of crap in the first and second book. In the third book, their relationship started getting a lot better. But the last book, it was just action-packed, and there's a lot of things that happened that I wasn't expecting. And it wasn't all about the steamy part of their relationship. It was more about how they are developing as a couple, even though the first part of the novel was still really annoying because there was a big fight, and it was just like, come on guys, just get over it. Spoiler alert right now, spoiler, they're getting married, so obviously the happily ever after thing had to happen. But I gave the last book 4 stars just because I was still annoyed at the constantly going back and forth and arguing all the time and fighting and having little random things like secrets that they're not telling each other. That communication in a relationship to me is key. So that part of the novel was irritating. It still irritated me a little bit. But besides that, the character development, the relationship development, and just all the way, like the roundness of it and the action that happened. I was not expecting action like that to happen, and I really, really, really liked it. Like, I really enjoyed that part. It does kind of give me 50 Shades vibes just because of the way that it happened, like their relationship, the constantly fighting, the constantly breaking up, then the action at the very end. It kind of reminded me of that. But I'm gonna honestly say that I liked this series a lot better than 50 Shades. I know that it wasn't supposed to be like a comparison video, but I honestly liked it a lot better than 50 Shades because they just seemed like they had more chemistry than 50 Shades. If you've ever read Gabriel's Inferno, it was like a cross between those. It was written the first book was published in 2014, last book was published last year, so it was kind of in between those weird, like, the weird things that were going on in romance at that time. I enjoyed the last book. I think the last book was my favorite out of the series, which is weird. But yeah, I really like the last book. If you're looking for steamy romance, if you're looking for the annoying characters that finally grow up and they just become one as a whole, I think you would enjoy the series. So please don't let the other clips that I put in there deter you from it. I was just kind of annoyed. But I'm glad that I stuck with the series and read the last book, because it's a solid 4. Yeah, it's a solid 4. But yeah, just want to pop in, give you that little detail. But I just wanted you to know that there is a lot of character development. Steamy scenes, if you like those, it's got it for you. But just know that Penny is annoying. James is annoying. They're both annoying, but it's just intriguing, and that's why I just kept reading them. But yeah, that ends my, I keep wanting to say March, but that ends my April wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not already, please subscribe to my channel, comment, like this video if you liked it, and if you have any suggestions on how to make this channel a little bit more interesting, if you don't think it's interesting, just let me know down there. But thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day. Bye.